Hey guys, Susanna here. Well, I finished this part and I'm back to do the last part. I've done a lot of stitching and everything behind the scenes, so I'll show you. For this, I ended up just doing just a couple of crosses there, stitching it down, and then doing a backing stitch here and putting that little button on there. I used the big pink button in the center of that, stitched that down, I'll show you, did this stitching here, there, use that, did that one here, opposites. I was going to do some stitching in there, but I thought, no, just leave it. And then I ended up putting that, I was going to be doing some embroidery and everything. I just thought it was a bit too much, and that was perfect for in there. So that can go in there. And on here, I have done, like I stitched it all down. You can see quite a bit of white stitching here. Stitched it so it wouldn't move all around the edge there on the outside, and then even here the only bits that are moving are these bits. Then I just did some scrolly bits here which I used a stem stitch, and then this is a satin stitch, and then French note. I thought that matched that really well, and this is just the thread that comes in with the kit. So I really like that, how that turns out, and I thought, well, I can probably give you the pattern for that, but everyone's piece is going to be that little bit different. So you're going to get more something like that. You're going to get different pieces. So this is just how I've done mine. I thought I just wanted to do something on the edges. So okay, now what I've done now, this is the putting it together stage, so it's going to be a little interesting. So I'll just, we have to work together. So I've already gone on the sewing machine, and you go onto your biggest stitch. You don't tie it off, and you stitch a straight stitch on your biggest stitch, because what we're going to be doing here is gathering. And I've done the same. When I did my piece, I didn't end up with a Laura Ashley piece on mine, like when I was doing all the kits. Everybody in the kit gets that piece. I got these pieces instead on mine, so I thought, well, I had enough Laura Ashley for mine I thought I'm going to use that on the inside. So what you need to do is make your inside lining pretty much the same size as the back, this finished piece here, and then do the same 1/4 inch biggest stitch on your machine. So the technique that I'm going to be using for here is going to be the same that you use for the inside of the lining. Now I've gotten some cardboard. Well, this is actually mat board, and I used this is a template, so I used that to everyone in the kit gets some of this, and you're going to use that as the base and for the inside. If you want, you can use the fabric. Some people have got this fabric as the inside. Mostly I've got that one, and then there's this blue and white stripe, which I had because you need a fair bit, so I just used what I had. This is actually a mat board, but you can use cereal box or whatever. So you cut it, these are cut at that size, which is the outside. Then the mat board, I figured, because we're going to be sewing, needs to be the size of the inside. So you get those two sizes in the pattern. So the mat board, you only use one of them, which is going to be in so if you can get a bit of cardboard that's fairly clear. So this is going to be the stitching part. So what I'm going to do, because this is the outside, I wanted that to be on the base because that's the one you see, and then I think most of them have got something with some flowers, and then one's a little bit plainer. So because I've taken it out from the fabric and sort of done it wherever. They're all a little bit different. Now what we need to do is, now it works out really well with this because there's 12 squares, so the middle of this is here, so that works really well. And then you mark it by another 3. So on your plainer inside piece, you're just going to have to mark the distance, and then that's the edge there. So get the 3 squares, 1, 2, 3, and that one. So this outside piece is actually quite easy. So what I'm going to do with this is we're going to fold it in 4, so it's being marked by 4 pieces here. So these are our joins. Okay, these are the, so you know, fold it, and so you've got definite marks. I'll probably put pins on there so that we know exactly where they are. Now this part isn't hard, it's just fiddly, but anything worth making and creating, you know, take the good with the bad. So now this technique we use the same on the inside, remember? So what we're going to do is you get, it's got 2 threads because you've got 2 threads on the machine, so we are going to pull in, and then we're going to gather it. Because this has got to fit around this part here. So you've got to be careful, make sure it's a, you know, a fairly sturdy thread. So I might go on using 1 thread. See, that's the middle, and then go on the other side and pull this side and sort of do the same. Might need to gather it in or further along as we go. Remember, just the 1 thread. This wasn't always my favourite thing to do when I used to do a lot of sewing, because, you know, it can break and, yeah, all sorts of interesting things happen. Oop. It's just a guide. That's all that is. So we're pulling it along. Stay. Okay. Okay. Sort of want to do this a little bit beforehand rather than when you're attempting to sew it on. Okay. Now, and because it's round too, that always proves fairly challenging. So, okay, that's going to be the outside, so it needs to be sewn this way. So what we need to do is get that bit there, and we pin this down to here. So you can take one of the pins out. So I'll give it a good pin. Then this bit here is going to be pinned to this part. Make sure it's right on the edge. And then this part, actually, I think what I need to do before we do anything is actually sew this down. but I might say that after. So that's going to be to about maybe 1/4 inch, because that's where you usually end up sewing to. Ugh. Now, there's the third one. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. I think I do need to sew it together. So, before you do that last bit, you're going to need to sew this down. Okay, you can sort of see where I'm going with that. So I'll just pause and I'll sew that, and then I'll fiddle around with that. Okay, back again. Okay, I sewed that down and I just pressed it open. Okay, if you want, you can probably finger press. So it definitely pays to do this step first, but I didn't go back and forward over it because I still need to be the maneuverability to be able to move these pieces. So where is that? There it is. There's a pin. So what we need to do is pin this on the inside there. Okay, now what we need to do, as I'm saying, this is the tricky part, but anything that's worth doing. So what we need to do is we need to gather in between each part an even amount, and that's why the pins are there. Okay, and you can still like pull. Is there a fairly even amount here? It might be a little bit close on that side. And fairly even, might be a little bit more needs to be pulled over onto this side. Where's this? There we go. So gather that. That's why we really need to make sure that these pins do not move. Okay. One of them can come out, so I'm going to do a really pin it in, so that it just does not move. Okay, so what we need to do here is, as I'm saying, fiddly, but not impossible. I might pull that over a little bit. So from that mark to that mark, it needs to gather in like that, and that's fairly like even it up between the, you know, the things. So you get a pin and you push it down. Pin and push it down. Okay. Okay. Same goes for this one. So because it's got three compartments, this part is actually a little bit easier than probably if you do the other one. It's fairly see, because it's different types of fabric. It's going to be interesting. This is fairly gathered, and then this is a really light thin fabric, so yeah. Some of these things are not easy. Okay, move it over. Okay, now, is this the last one? Okay. Okay. Work that in. And then this seems fairly squished. I might put a little bit more, take that one out. See, you just got to adjust it as you go. And then maybe work that one a little closer to this side. Okay. So out of the whole putting together of everything, this is the trickiest part. So, okay, now we're gonna okay. Okay, move that over a little bit. This is the end, so there's plenty of gathering. Hang on a minute, I might pull this in a little bit. It seems to be, there we go. Gathering really squishy there. Not much on the other side, so there we go. Oop. In. Bit more in. And then you go onto your machine. There we go. And you proceed. I've got to bring this over a little more to stitch and make sure that it's 1/4 inch. Okay, and then this last piece, which needs to be moved over a little bit. There we go. So we have got lots of pins, but that's okay, it's all good. Now you go onto the machine and see how that's pinned. You just slowly, it might even pay to, like, your machine's got a bit that you can probably pull out, just so it's a lot easier, and then we just do a straight stitch just to hold it into place. And then once it's been sewn on, make sure that you check that all the bits are gathered. See, this is why we don't do any embroidery or anything on the bottom. So these are all these dangly bits, and they're all on the inside. So I'll be back and I'll show you and how I've stitched that, and I'll do the same technique on this piece. What you need to do beforehand is divide it into 3, because it'll be a fairly 3, 4. It'll be a fairly you know, like it's a smaller piece. So we've got to make sure that we get our marks and do the same thing on that one. In the middle. There we go. But before I do all that, I've got to sew it together and then gather it. So see, it's easy enough. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, here we are back again. Now I sewed it, see, I sewed it around twice, and it's a little tricky, I'll admit that. And so yeah, see, that's what it looks like. Then when we pull it the right way around, this bottom layer becomes the base. See? Now I may go through here and do a stitch, whether it be on the machine or by hand, before it's being put together, and hold that down. So it looks really pretty. So that is our little bag so far. So what I'm going to be doing is doing that same technique. Looks so nice, looks like a big massive yo-yo, doesn't it? Do the same technique with the other one, and then I'll be back and I'll show you how we're going to be putting it together, like a, you know, like you know, we put it sort of inside out and then we sew, and then we'll have to leave a gap and turn it the right way around. And in between all of that lot as well, what I was thinking, see, that might even be a little bit too big, so we might cut that down, because that's going to go in between. And I was actually thinking I might get some tacky glue and actually glue it down so that when we do put it in between, it's not going to move. That's why you do really need a light piece of cardboard, something with white or whatever light. Okay, I'll be back. I'm going to pause it again, and then I'm going to sew the other side, and yeah, we'll see how we put it together. Okay, I thought I'd show you this part. I trimmed a little bit off. So what I'm going to do, and I just got some tacky glue and then rubbed it on. I thought I'll do this part now, because you know, the tacky glue does take a little bit to dry. So we'll stick it in there. I'd rather have it a little bit smaller than, there we go. Because this has got to be put in before we put the two bits together. Now we'll see how it looks on that side. Rather interesting. Okay. I'm going to definitely, maybe when the bag is together, I might get a little slip stitch and stitch that down, because it seems a little bit smaller there. So okay, because we definitely want the base. Oop, bit fiddly, but there we go. Could move it over a tad to this side. Get my fingernails in, push, there we go. That's it. Okay, I'll be back. Okay guys, what I've done now is I've finished the inside of that. So we've got that. So what we need to do is turn both of them inside out and put the correct, you know, the outside facing together like this. Okay, now I've just joined the, see how it's got two edges, so I've just pinned them together, and I'm going to leave a bit of a gap. I might leave a gap on this side, so I'll leave a gap maybe about that big, something like that, enough so that we can, actually we need to get the base through, so we might make it a little bigger. Yeah. About the width of the base, which is about that. Okay, then we just proceed to pin, and we sew in 1/4 of an inch, well, you know, which is the standard on the sewing machine. Make sure leaving that gap all the way around. I just thought I'd pin it. This is why the top bit, the lining needs to be the same size as the actual outer piece as well. Okay, now if you wanted to, for those that are really top-notch sewers, you could probably put some batting in between. It's just a, you know, a simple, well, not a simple, a decorated drawstring bag, but I figured it's got a fair bit of, it's fairly thick by the time you do it, you know. So you've got to be careful, because sometimes you can end up with a little being a little bit bigger. That's okay. Now and I don't want it to be, this is why it needs to be the same size, so I'll just gather that in there a little bit. Okay, so we start from there and we sew to there, then we turn it inside out, and then we do an outside seam. So, but I'll be back. Okay, I already jumped the gun and I'm turning it inside out. First thing I pulled through was the mat. Okay, now it does seem a little weird at this point, but it's okay, it's all good. So what you need to do is you get, this has got a bit of an edge there, it's got a bit of an edge there. Okay. And we're just going to hold that in. I will probably sew on the outside of here. I started sewing at the wrong point, but that's okay, it's all good. Now fold it over. There we go. Might even pay to give it an iron. So what you do is you push the inside together so that the bases are fitting together, and then we're going to fold these bits over like that and pin it, slowly coming together, so that when we sew it down, then we're going to be nearly on the last bit. This came together a lot better than what I thought it would, so I'm rather pleased about that. Okay, so fold that over, and I managed to not catch that, which is good. Now then we're going to do the drawstring as well, and that's the last bit. So I'll just continue doing that, and then you sew a straight stitch around there, and that will hold that down. And so you've got yourself So pretty. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, we are nearly done. Well, that's been sewed down, so that's how it's sitting now on the inside. It looks so pretty. If you wanted to, you could probably, when you sewed this part, you could have made pockets, but I thought I just didn't want to add any extra. Loving how it's looking. So what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do now is I've got the drawstring, which I've got this one for myself. Some of them have got wider ribbon, so you've got to sew according to whatever size ribbon there is. I matched them up, and I've just got a thread. So what I want to do is I think I would like to have it here. I'm going to use this line here, and unfortunately means I'm going to have to sew over to the top of that. So what I've got to do, I can feel that anyway, but I'll put a pin there, is I've got to sew a line. That should be right there. Once again, here, this is just so that it gives me a guide of where I need to sew. Most of it's okay. Now I'm just going to sew with the cream, and we need to sew about the width of this. So I've got to sew a line, because remember these are not joined together, they're joined together on the top. So I'm going to sew a line here and then come back probably just underneath. Might just pay to go underneath there, because we've got to get that through. Okay, so I'll be back and I'll show you what I mean. Because this has got the 4 squares, I thought if I start on the bottom and go up, that would be the best place, and it just means I'm sewing over the top of that, but that's okay. If I do it in the cream, it's not going to look as noticeable. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back again. As you can see, I've just sewn 2 lines. I actually had to take off one of the buttons. I will probably re-sew that on a little bit later. Sometimes it just works out, and I was lucky it come underneath there. And so you do sew a line there, and then this is where you've got to be really careful too, because here it puckered and went all wonky on me, so you've got to be really careful. So now you've got to pick, because it's 12, so you've just got to pick what you want as the front. So I'm going to go there, and we are going to unpick. Sounds really weird, you've done all this sewing. We're just going to unpick here, and I figured at the seams is probably the best place to unpick, because, and then we're going to do a blanket stitch to hold it the sides together. It does seem a little weird, but we've got to get our thread in, because it's sewn either side. Should be okay. There you go. Now it's sewn here and sewn here, so that will be okay like that. I'm going to put the thread through, and then we're going to do the same on this bit here. Is that 6? Make sure it's 6 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it is this one. So we're just going to unpick this bit here. Not always easy. but it's definitely easier unpicking and re-putting this together than it is and sewing it together the way that I did. Yep. Come on. Okay. I need to get an opening there. Sorry guys. Now, hopefully that's opened up enough. That we can get in. Yep. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is on either side you do a blanket stitch, so that holds those pieces down. And allows you to have an opening. So I've just got this, no, not the best start to it, a very small blanket stitch on that side. Now, depending how big your bit is, wished I had picked another. This is not always, this is a very fray fabric. This one not always the best. There we go. Well, I'll stick that there for now anyway, and we'll fold that over. Because we need an opening. Go around there, go back to there, and then I'm going to close this up. Make sure that you don't sew it like grab the other bit that's underneath, like as in the lining, because you don't want to do that. You just got to sew the edges of this piece so that it doesn't fray, and you do the same thing on the other side. Because I haven't got a very big piece of ribbon, it happens to be a fairly small piece. Okay, now just going to knot it off. Okay. Now, you can use, this is called That Purple Thing, which I got from a craft show, but you can use a small like pin or something like that. I just wrapped it around that. I might make it so it's definitely going in. I might do it this way. Right. Got it going through, but I might knot it so it doesn't come undone. And let's hope to goodness that I can get this thing through. Okay, there we go. And we're going to pull that through like that. Okay, doesn't seem to be wanting to come through. There we go. Okay. So this is where the drawstring thing happens. Okay, it's coming. It's a coming. Sorry, I hope I'm in camera. Having a little bit of difficulty in this spot. Because it's too small. Hang 10. I'll pause it and I'll be back. It's already 40 minutes. Okay, I'm back again. So I managed to get it through. So we unhook this part here, and we've got the two parts here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to tie a knot in that part. Make sure that there you get this part here. While I was on the other side, I did the blanket stitch there too. So okay, so you got it, get it so that it's, make sure that it's straight, and then I'm going to tie a knot. Okay, then do a fairly big knot. Do the same on this side. If you want to, you could probably put a bead or something in there. I might double it because we don't want it to go back through, and so I might double it here, so we don't want it to go through that part. So there we go. Have it on a bit of an angle so it doesn't fray as much. And then we have got ourselves our drawstring bag. Now, the first few times pulling it in might prove to be a little bit difficult, but then after a while it'll become a lot more freer. Okay. There we go. How cute is that? There we go. But I didn't want to have it. So you've got, it's almost like my prototype that I have got is a little bit easier to do in and out. How cute is that? I love it. But then you open it up and you can stick your bits and pieces in, and then you close it up again. Okay, I think that's how it works. There we go. Our little drawstring Scrappy drawstring bag. I've got, here's the prototype that I saw, and that seems to be open and close really well. So maybe I'm doing something wrong. No, I've done it the same as what I did it there. Maybe it's just gappier, I don't know. Seems to be, you know, it doesn't want to pull. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Okay guys, well, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this beautiful drawstring bag. I've thoroughly enjoyed making it and putting it together. It is so pretty. It's the only thing with when you I think there must be a certain way of doing it. Maybe you put it in both the strings together. So I'll have to investigate. Because that one seems to pull and that one doesn't. So I'll have to have a look. Okay, no worries guys. Well, I will catch you in the next video, and I thoroughly enjoyed stitching this beautiful pretty bag, and I'll get this drawstring figured out. Well, what I'm going to use it for is to take my pin cushion and all that kind of stuff, and scissors when I go with me go to places, so we fill it out a little bit more. Yeah, it's so cute. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later. Bye.